Hello, YouTube. All right. Welcome to another live special edition of As a Van Turns. This is the Lunchtime Frozen Lizard for Lunch edition. All right, we're live, so videos are going to be somewhat out of sequence. The live stuff is obviously live and current. I did run a pre-recorded segment this morning showing how cold it was. I think temperature-wise, it might have dropped as low as 70s around. I mean, not 70s. In the low 40s, maybe the high 30s around here last night. I know I woke up in the middle of the night and it was like 45 degrees inside the van. That was inside the van. It was like 45, 47 degrees on my thermometer. And I was all bundled up, underneath the double blanket. So thank you for those of you who gave me the it saved me from freezing last night. I stopped by the RV and picked up the extra comforter, so that was good. But it's so cold in Florida that apparently the lizards are freezing and falling out of the trees again. So even in South Florida, I don't know if you guys saw my episodes where I showed South Florida, Walter's house. There's these giant lizards all over Florida. They're iguanas and stuff. Some are fairly exotic, very exotic, giant-sized iguanas, which are lizards. And I don't know if you know, lizards, iguanas, they're cold-blooded. So what that means is they can't make heat, in their body. So their body slows down when it gets cold. And when the temperature drops to like below the 50s in Florida, the lizards tend to become unconscious. And what happened was a lot of the lizards in South Florida are falling out of trees or out of, they climb the roofing and they hang out around the swimming pool and stuff like that up on the top part of the swimming pool. You know how people have the cover and stuff like that. But they fall down all the time in Florida when it gets this cold. And right now, temperature-wise, I think it's in the 40s and raining. It's wet. But that's cold enough for the lizards to actually go into kind of a hibernation. And they fall down. Now, what's interesting and why I referenced Lunchtime is these iguanas, those big green ones, the ones I'm talking about, they're like, I guess they get upwards of about 4 or 5 feet in length. If you count from head to the head to the tip of their tail, they get to like up to 4 or 5 feet long, and they can weigh quite a bit. Well, in Thailand, when I was a kid, we used to hunt these lizards. So, they would be up in the trees, and you would get a rock or a slingshot, and you would try to shoot these lizards and knock them out of the tree, and then get them, and then skewer them and cook them over an open fire. So they're pretty good to eat. They got their meat's kind of interesting because it's this white flaky meat that has the texture of like fish, but it doesn't taste like fish. A lot of times people say, "What does something taste like?" When they don't know what it tastes like, they say it tastes like chicken, but really it doesn't taste like chicken. It tastes, I would say the texture is like fish, but the taste is kind of its own unique little taste. I guess similar to fish and chicken, like a cross between fish and chicken. But the way we cooked it as kids wasn't exactly gourmet. We just stuck it on a stick and roasted it over a fire. But what was interesting was I came to America, of course, and when I went to the pet store, they have a pet store called Incredible Pets in Melbourne, and I went in there with my kids and saw those same lizards, the giant-sized iguanas, and they had the price on it in the exotic pet store. Those things sell for more than $1,000. I think they had it listed at like $1,700. I was like, oh my gosh, I ate those things. I used to eat those as a kid. So, I was like totally freaking out. I was like, man, I ate a whole bunch of them. That's kind of expensive. But anyhow, But where it ties in Florida is this, okay? So with the cold weather, the lizards are falling out of the trees. I mean, you can just walk around and you see them on the ground, and they look dead, but they're not. They're actually in shock. They're in a cold shock, and they go into like a suspended animation, kind of like Han Solo in Carbonite or whatever that stuff was that they sprayed all over him and he froze. So that's what's going on with all the lizards in South Florida and all throughout Florida. Well, some dude in South Florida, I'm hearing this third hand. I'm hearing this from a coworker who was telling me, he made the news. So some dude was in South Florida, and when he noticed all the lizards were falling down from the trees, they're good eating. He started getting them all. He would collect all these lizards. So he was just picking them up off the ground, a whole bunch of them, and he stuck them in his car and was driving around collecting lizards. The thing is, he had his heater on in his car. So you can only imagine what happened next. So he apparently gathered the lizards, didn't put them in a box or anything, and just tossed them into his car, I guess, into the back seat or whatever, into a pile, and drove around collecting more lizards. But he had his heater on because it's cold. Well, the heat started heating up all those lizards. And apparently they all woke up and attacked him. So my tip for you, if the weather is cold and you see frozen lizards or lizards that look dead or even snakes, I can tell you about snakes in the compound and stuff, but if you see an animal that's cold-blooded, like a snake, a lizard, iguana, or anything else that's cold-blooded, and it's laying there on the ground, looking limp, looking like it's dead, it's probably not dead. It's in hibernation. It's like, think of Han Solo. But that's what they're like. They freeze, and they literally just sort of go into suspended animation. But if you put them into your car and you have your heater on, be prepared. That was hilarious. But that, because we're all cold now. The people in Florida were all freaking out. It's in the 40s right now where I am, the low 40s and wet, and everybody's like, oh, freezing. Because we're used to like 70, 80 degrees. But it reminds me of when I was out at the compound. I was when I was still living out there. I don't know if you guys were aware of the whole hut fiasco where, remember Hut 2.0? Everybody was freaking out thinking I was running old videos. Those were actually very current. And I think it was just like, what was it? Just last year at this time, I think it was. Yeah. It was like last year around this time. I think that's when it happened. But basically, I had built a hut out at the compound in the woods. I built that hut and was living out there in the winter. So, it was getting cold. It would get into the 50s or the upper 40s. And I remember waking up and there would be snakes all over the ground. There would be snakes all over the roads. I drive through the maze, the labyrinth and stuff. They would be laying all over the roads, and I thought somebody was going around tossing rubber snakes, trying to scare people. They were like big, they were like about 4 or 5 feet long, and I don't know if they were coral snakes or what, but they were like, they had some of the black ones, the racers, but they also had some black with red and stuff. I forget if it was red and black or black and red. I don't know. But they had those striped snakes, and they would be laying across the street. And I drove by and I would try to zigzag and avoid hitting those snakes. But I thought that they were fake. Because I'm like, there were too many of them. There was like a whole bunch of them. But now that I think about it, after hearing about what the lizards do, I'm thinking those snakes were out on the street trying to sun themselves. They were trying to warm themselves up because, they're cold-blooded. And they might have been like in kind of hibernation or whatever, out on the street, just laying there trying to sun themselves to warm up. But I remember I would be out in the woods and I would hear people driving by on their ATVs, the others. Remember the others? They would ride by and they would be freaking out over the snakes too, because the snakes were all along the path. Anyhow, just want to let everyone know I'm okay. Wanted to thank you for giving me a heads up on the cold weather, because I'm getting ready to head back to the RV right now to try to get more supplies, because it may get colder still. But I know this broadcast is probably pretty bad, so I'm not going to make it too long. I wanted to thank you all for the heads up. I hope that wherever you are right now, you're staying warm, staying safe. And if you haven't already picked one up, make sure, if you're in your van trying to stay warm and stuff, that you pick up a carbon monoxide detector. If you need assistance with getting a carbon monoxide detector, leave a comment down below and let me know. Send me your PayPal link, post it there, and we'll see if we can't get you one. So until next time, everyone, take care, stay safe. Remember, even if you're running your heater from your vehicle, to stay warm, there's a potential for carbon monoxide leak because of the exhaust blowing back up to your vehicle. So try to stay safe, everybody. Stay warm. Take care. God bless you all. Bye-bye now.